On the 19th of September 2000, Elon Musk and his newlywed bride were excited to embark on their long-delayed honeymoon. The two boarded a flight headed to Australia, where their honeymoon was going to take place. When the plane landed, Elon Musk received a distressing call. The call was to inform him that he had been fired as CEO with immediate effect. Right as the plane had left for Australia, Peter Thiel began a coup. He gathered all the board members of PayPal except for Elon Musk and convinced them to oust Elon Musk. This left Musk out of the job a few months after getting it, and the coup leader, Peter Thiel, was announced as the company's new CEO. This is just a single event in the series of insane events that occurred during the creation and meteoric rise of PayPal. This story involves fraud, failed coups, millions of dollars burned, backstabbings, enemies turned friends, lawsuits, and everything in between. All of which was done in a bid to dominate the online payments world, which promised unimaginable riches for the young entrepreneurs. It drove them to have an intense love and hate relationship that only worked because of their shared goal of global domination. This is a story of how a dysfunctional collection of smart and ambitious engineers and entrepreneurs ruthlessly forged an empire from unlikely beginnings. Our story begins with an unlikely person, Max Levhcin. Max Levhcin was born and raised in the Soviet Union during the Cold War, where he developed an interest in programming. But because this was the Soviet Union, he had very limited access to computers, and so he had to rely on learning how to program using pen and paper and punching in his code into a computer whenever he got access to one. When he was 16, his parents would move to the US. Upon arriving to the US, a family member gifted Levchin a new computer. For the first time in his life, Max had a computer he could use at his leisure, programming whenever he wanted for however long he felt like it. A few years after moving to America, Max Levhcin would go on to attend the University of Illinois to study computer science. At Illinois, he started building his resume as an entrepreneur. He tried multiple internet and software ventures, but none of them took off. Levchin graduated with a computer science degree in 1997. Upon graduating, Max Levhcin headed to the bustling tech capital of the world, Silicon Valley, where on one occasion he attended a presentation of a man named Peter Thiel. At the time, Peter Thiel was a Stanford law graduate who had just quit his job as a lawyer and was deepening his interest in the financial technology world. He became a bit of an expert on the topic and ended up giving presentations on the power technology had to transform the financial world. At one of those presentations, Max Levhcin happened to be in the audience and was very impressed with Thiel's presentation. After Thiel's presentation had finished, Max Levhcin introduced himself to Thiel and the two hit it off, striking a friendship which would eventually lead to the pair starting a company together. They started a company called Confinity, which created software that used cryptography to conduct secure financial transactions on handheld devices, primarily the Palm Pilot, which was growing in popularity in the late 1990s. But the Palm Pilot wasn't as popular as they initially thought it was. One day the Confinity team decided to conduct a mini survey where they went to a few restaurants in the area. When they went into the restaurants, they found one person, if they were lucky, per restaurant who had a Palm Pilot. An employee by the name of David Sachs rightfully pointed out that they were thinking about the problem they were solving the wrong way. They had built a payment system that was limited to work on a device that only had a maximum of 5 million users across the world. Sachs pointed out that if they took that technology and allowed anyone with an email address to be able to make payments regardless of whether they were on a computer or using a handheld, that presented a massive market. So the Confinity team abandoned their previous product and built a new payment system based on email from the ground up. They called it PayPal. The product was a hit, especially on eBay, where sellers quickly adopted PayPal as a preferred method of receiving payments because it was faster and more reliable than waiting for checks or money orders to clear. As more and more eBay sellers started using PayPal, the payment service saw exponential growth. At about the same time as Confinity's founding, a different entrepreneur founded a company that too worked on financial technology. The entrepreneur was Elon Musk. Musk had spent most of his childhood growing up in South Africa until the age of 17 when he moved to Canada. Upon arriving in Canada, he soon enrolled at Queen's University to study physics and economics. While at Queen's, he landed an internship at the Bank of Nova Scotia in Canada. It was at this internship where he learned about the inner workings of the banking industry. One profound observation he made was just how systematic and rigid banks were. He saw that they were set up in a way that made it difficult for them to innovate, a realization that would prove pivotal in his future business ventures. After 2 years at Queen's University, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. After graduating from the University of Pennsylvania, he got accepted into a Stanford graduate program, which he dropped out of after 2 days, opting to join the booming internet startup revolution that was happening in Silicon Valley. He founded Zip2, which was a company that provided and licensed online city guide software to newspapers. The company would later be sold for $307 million to Compaq. From the sale of the company, Elon Musk made $22 million. Musk took most of the earnings from his Zip2 windfall and invested them in a new venture, X.com. He co-founded the startup along with 3 other people, including Harris Fricker, whom Musk had met while interning at the Bank of Nova Scotia. Harris Fricker was by far the most experienced and qualified among the co-founders. He was a banker with a master's degree from Oxford University, and over the years he had gained a great deal of experience working in the banking industry. Musk's dream was to create a one-stop shop for all financial services, entirely online. He believed that the banking system was outdated and ripe for disruption. X.com aimed to provide a faster, cheaper, and more efficient alternative to traditional banking. But less than a year into the new venture, things weren't going well. Musk appointed himself chairman of X.com and appointed Bill Harris as CEO of the company. Harris had previously served as CEO of Intuit, but the CEO appointment upset Harris Fricker, who had moved his entire family to California with the hope that he would be the CEO of X.com. Musk and Fricker frequently butted heads. Fricker accused Musk of overhyping X.com. He got so fed up that he attempted a boardroom coup to oust Musk and Bill Harris so he could take over as CEO. This was merely 5 months after the company's founding. As you can imagine, the coup plot failed. So Harris Fricker, along with 2 other founders of X.com, simply quit and left the company. They took the best software engineers with them to start a competing company, leaving Musk and X.com with a barely functioning platform and virtually no skilled engineers to maintain or improve it. During this tumultuous period, the company's coffers were also starting to run dry, so Elon Musk raised more venture capital funding from Sequoia Capital. He used the funding to push on and rebuild the X.com team and build a viable product. X.com's original plan was to be the Amazon of money, encompassing mortgages, loans, investments, and everything in between. But the most popular feature of their website was its money transfer service. Musk frequently had presentations where he showed off the sophistication of the suite of financial services that X.com provided, and no one would be interested. Then he showed them the email payments feature and everyone would be interested. So they did the logical thing and completely refocused the company on email payments. They made this pivot at about the same time as Confinity. Funny enough, at some point Confinity and X.com were neighbors in an office building where they were both building different products in the financial tech space. At the time, each company thought the other was misguided and took the wrong approach to building a financial technology company. Now both companies had arrived at the same conclusion of pursuing email payments and all of a sudden became each other's biggest competitor. This set the stage for one of the fiercest battles in Silicon Valley history. Elon Musk noticed just how popular Confinity's PayPal was on eBay and concluded that to crush PayPal, he would have to win over eBay sellers. At the time, X.com was giving users $10 for opening an account and another $10 for every person they referred. Confinity's PayPal, seeing the effectiveness of this strategy, soon followed suit, offering similar bonuses and rewards. The result was an arms race of user incentives, where both companies were burning through millions of dollars to attract as many many users as possible. The strategy worked. Both X.com and PayPal saw explosive growth in their user bases. However, it also created significant financial strain as the companies were effectively paying people to use their services without having a clear path to profitability. One of the key technical debates within X.com was over its infrastructure. Elon Musk strongly advocated for the company to build its platform using Microsoft Windows technology, while many of X.com's engineers preferred Linux for its stability and scalability. On Confinity's part, Max Levhcin took the lead in addressing security challenges. Levchin's technical expertise in cryptography became critical in developing sophisticated fraud detection systems, including the invention of CAPTCHA, a tool that distinguished between human users and bots. PayPal's aggressive stance on fraud prevention helped it build trust among users, particularly eBay users who needed a secure way to handle online transactions. eBay had become the most dominant online marketplace at the time. For eBay sellers, PayPal and X.com were a godsend, but PayPal was clearly the more popular choice because of its focus on security and its much better fraud detection systems. By early 2000, it became clear that the competition between X.com and Confinity was unsustainable. Both companies were hemorrhaging cash due to the massive amounts of money being burnt on user acquisition incentives and fraud prevention. While their user bases were growing, neither company had a clear path to profitability. X.com was struggling to keep up with PayPal's growth. Meanwhile, Confinity was facing its own internal pressures as it scaled PayPal and dealt with the ever-present threat of fraud. While PayPal was the more popular of the two payment systems, Confinity had less capital than X.com, which had raised money a few months earlier. X.com could still afford to offer millions of dollars in incentives to attract new customers, while Confinity was rapidly running out of money. The war had reached a stalemate. PayPal had more users, but X.com had more money but an inferior product. If the war had continued, both companies would have just driven each other to bankruptcy, leaving no winners. Unless they could find a way to coexist, but any talk of combining forces was not going to be easy. These were the two companies that had been engaged in a fierce battle against each other for months and had come to have a real loathing for one another. Any negotiations were going to be tense. Elon Musk was against the merger from the onset. So too was Confinity's lead investor and Confinity CTO Max Levhcin. Eventually, the two companies worked out an agreement to merge, which saw the merged entity retain the name of Musk's X.com, but the name would later be changed to PayPal. Because of X.com's considerable financial resources, Elon Musk emerged as the largest shareholder of the newly formed merged company. Bill Harris, the CEO of X.com before the merger, became the CEO of the newly merged entity. Immediately after the merger closed, the company raised a new round of venture capital funding worth $100 million. They were right to raise capital quickly because the merger closed on March 2000, and just a few months later, the stock market would crash, wiping out over $2.5 trillion in value, with most of that coming from tech stocks losing value. But luckily for PayPal, they had raised enough money to weather the storm. But not so lucky were their competitors, with a vast majority of them going out of business in the aftermath of the dot-com bubble bursting. But for PayPal, the most concerning troubles were not outside competition, but internal instability. CEO Bill Harris and Peter Thiel didn't get along well. Harris tried to bring in new hires from the banking industry, which were deeply unpopular with the PayPal team, who felt that if the banking hires knew how to help, they would have already introduced online payments at the banks they worked for previously. Eventually, PayPal leadership orchestrated a coup and replaced Bill Harris as CEO with Elon Musk. Musk immediately changed the structure of the company, breaking it out from a rigid structure with a strict chain of command to smaller teams which were given semi-autonomy to execute without really having to seek permission. This allowed the company to build and iterate faster, thereby out-innovating all their competitors. However, Musk's leadership wasn't without its flaws. For one, Musk had a fervent insistence that PayPal's code be rewritten using Microsoft's programming languages away from the Linux it had been written in. This strong insistence came from the fact that X.com's original payments technology was written using Microsoft programming languages. This created a huge rift between Musk and the PayPal development team, who refused to rewrite the code. And there was also the issue of direction. Musk still wanted to build his vision of an online bank, while most at PayPal simply wanted to focus on online payments. Musk's insistence on rebranding everything under the X.com name, even though PayPal was far more popular among users, also didn't help to ease tensions. Another significant point of conflict was the technology itself. Levchin and his engineering team were deeply concerned about the security vulnerabilities in the payment system. Musk, on the other hand, was more focused on expanding the platform's functionality and growing its user base. This difference in priorities created significant friction within the engineering and product teams. By September 2000, the tension reached a breaking point. Musk had alienated much of the company's leadership, particularly the original PayPal team, who felt that Musk's vision was too broad and unfocused. So a plot to oust him was put in motion. The orchestration of the coup involved Peter Thiel, Max Levhcin, and other board members. They waited until Elon Musk had to fly away to celebrate his delayed honeymoon with his new wife. When the plane took off, the coup began. By the time the plane landed, Elon Musk was no longer CEO of PayPal. He had been replaced by Peter Thiel. Many within PayPal feared immense retaliation from Elon Musk, who had built a reputation for being ruthless. Musk loyalists within PayPal offered to threaten to resign if Musk wasn't reinstated, but Musk told them to hold their horses and not fight back. In a rare moment of content, Musk decided not to seek revenge for his ousting. After taking over as CEO, Peter Thiel addressed many of the security concerns that Levchin and his team had raised. The company invested heavily in fraud detection and prevention, building advanced algorithms to detect suspicious activity and protect user accounts. This focus on security helped build trust with both consumers and businesses. Thiel also refocused the company on its core product, PayPal. Under Thiel's leadership, the company doubled down on its efforts to dominate the online payment space, particularly on eBay. Thiel recognized that eBay was PayPal's most important partner, and he had made it a priority to strengthen that relationship. However, this relationship with eBay was both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, eBay was driving a significant portion of PayPal's user growth. On the other hand, PayPal was becoming increasingly dependent on eBay, which raised concerns that the company's future could be tied to the whims of the marketplace. Tensions began to rise when eBay set its own payments technology called BillPoint as the default payment method. This presented a massive threat to PayPal, which had a large chunk of its business coming from eBay sellers. But despite this, PayPal didn't lose much market share to BillPoint. eBay heavily promoted the use of BillPoint with incentive sign-up bonuses, but it only gained a small percentage of the market share. BillPoint was slow, cumbersome, and less popular with eBay sellers. eBay's BillPoint promotions were causing eBay to bleed money, so they gradually spent less on promotions. But BillPoint remained a threat, so PayPal devised a cunning strategy to crush it once and for all. During this period of intense competition between eBay and PayPal, Microsoft was facing pretty serious antitrust charges from the US government for unfairly bundling Internet Explorer with its operating system, a move that led to the death of the Netscape web browser. The US government threatened to break up Microsoft. As a result, this frightened every major tech company, including eBay. PayPal exacerbated their fears. They started writing to the Federal Trade Commission about eBay's monopoly power as it bundled its own payments technology on its massively dominant marketplace. This forced eBay to tone down its efforts to grow BillPoint, which kept PayPal with a large market share. It was at this point that PayPal decided that it wanted to IPO, but it had one massive problem. PayPal leadership knew that eBay had the potential to tank their IPO before it happened. They could easily go to the media and talk about how PayPal's business is largely dependent on eBay sellers, and that it would only be a matter of time until eBay's own payment software would replace PayPal. So they needed to find a way to keep eBay from spreading negative news about PayPal. The strategy they devised was ingenious. The PayPal team enticed eBay to acquisition talks, and they told them they could have PayPal for $1 billion. The genius behind this move was twofold. Firstly, if eBay was in talks to buy PayPal, they were legally not allowed to say anything bad about them in public. because it would be seen as market manipulation, breaking fiduciary responsibility. Secondly, the billion-dollar price tag was a smokescreen. The PayPal leadership knew that eBay was not going to pay that price. Instead, they would try to negotiate the price down, to which the PayPal team would stall right up until the IPO, completely preventing eBay from ruining the IPO with any negative press. The strategy was genius, and it worked like a charm. In 2002, PayPal IPO'd at a valuation of $1 billion, raising $70 million. It quickly became one of the most valuable tech companies in the world. Eventually, eBay would cave in and acquire PayPal for $1.5 billion. Under eBay's ownership, PayPal grew to become a global payment system that is valued at over $80 billion today. But soon after the acquisition, most of the original PayPal employees left the company. They would be dubbed the PayPal Mafia, a term coined to describe former PayPal alumni who went on to become some of the most influential figures in technology. This group include Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, founder of Palantir, Max Levhcin, founder of Affirm, Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, Chad Hurley, founder of YouTube, and many others who went on to build iconic companies.